Introduction to the module. An employer needs to perform a risk assessment to evaluate hazards correctly, and the chance of them harming staff. This module covers risk assessment and common risks at construction. Topics to be covered in this module. Core definitions. 5 steps to risk assessment. 1. Identifying hazards. 2. Deciding who may be harmed. 3. Evaluating risks. 4. Recording findings. 5. Reviewing and revising. Who should carry out risk assessments? Most common risks at work. Core definitions. To evaluate risks in an organization, you need to be able to understand the definitions and terminology used in everyday audits and assessments. These are the commonly held definitions for the most well-known terms. Risk, the chance, or likelihood, that an employee, or bystander, could be harmed by a hazard that originates from your facility. This could be anything from a scratch to an electrical shock. Hazard, an object, area, task, or substance that has the potential to cause harm to any person. This could be a variety of things from noxious fumes to sharp objects. Risk assessment, the act of identifying hazards that exist in an organization or facility, followed by a calculation of how likely it is to occur, and a plan to prevent harm from coming to any person. The 5 steps to risk assessment. There are 5 recognized stages to a good risk assessment. They are as follows. 1. Identifying hazards. The first stage to a risk assessment is to systematically check for all possible hazards that may harm a person. These could be physical, mental, chemical, or biological hazards, and each must be classified appropriately. Physical, this could range from the act of lifting stock, tripping over rubble, constant noise from machinery, dust from storage areas, or sitting in a cramped position for long periods. Mental, this could be attributed to long working periods, antisocial hours, overwhelming responsibilities, work pressure, or corporate bullying. Chemical, this is easily classed as any substance harmful to humans, such as asbestos, acids, or bleaching agents. Biological, this covers infectious ailments and diseases that healthcare staff may encounter, such as tuberculosis and coronavirus. 2. Deciding who may be harmed. The first step in identifying those at risk will realistically start with your organization's workforce, both full-time and part-time. This should then naturally progress to those who are contractors, visitors, clients, and members of the public on the premises for any reason. You should also give special consideration to more vulnerable people in these fields, such as young people, disabled people, expectant mothers, nighttime workers, customer-facing personnel. The type of harm will be specific to the environment involved and be a factor. For instance, supermarkets are prone to spillage and trips, whereas healthcare staff will need to prevent infectious contact. 3. Evaluating risks. Once the hazards and those at risk have been fully identified and categorized, as an employer, you must consider how likely it is that each hazard could cause harm. From this, you can determine whether further actions are needed to reduce the current level of risk. By working out if the risk remains high, medium or low in its current state, you can usually surmise if further planning is needed. You can do this by raising the following questions. Are you meeting the minimum legal requirements? Are you following published guidelines? Are you happy with the standard of protection? Can you reduce anything from high risk to a lower one? Does the workforce have adequate training or instructions to react to a potential hazard? The answer to these questions may guide you to provide improvements to your existing protocol if you are sincere in your findings. 4. Recording findings. All this information that has been gathered will need to be accurately recorded. Not only does this prove that an accurate and diligent assessment has been carried out, it is essential for use as a basis for the review of working practices. It should be freely available and be treated as a working document. It should never be locked in storage and simply archived for the sake of it. As we have previously stated in the course, it is a legal requirement for employers with 5 or more staff to document the main findings of the risk assessment, with the details of all hazards noted and the actions taken to reduce or eliminate risk. These could be requested as part of an inspection from the HSE or a relevant investigator following an incident. 5. Reviewing and revising. A risk assessment should be reviewed and revised regularly. While this should be performed at timed intervals, for example, words annually, a review should also be prompted when 2 other circumstances arise. Major changes have occurred in the workplace. This could be prompted by changes in work rotas or employee numbers or the acquisition of new machinery. Accidents or near misses have occurred recently on the premises. This could either prove that existing health and safety guidelines are working or need to be updated. Either case is a good reason to perform another assessment. Risk assessment report templates can be found on the HSE website via this link. Please, click the link. Who should carry out risk assessment? Ultimately, the responsibility of choosing who carries out a risk assessment lies with the employer. While there are no specific legal requirements, it is expected that the following criteria is satisfied by the person performing the assessment. They have appropriate knowledge of the activity, process or material that is being assessed. Relevant workers and employees are directly involved and freely give honest and accurate information. It is acceptable to use external contractors and analysts if workers and managers remain closely involved. The person is regarded as competent, as per the definition that we covered previously in Module 1. Most common risks at work. As we have stated previously, it should be remembered that the chances of an employee facing certain types of injury or accident will be affected by their role and their environment. For instance, a construction worker will be more likely to fall from a height or be hit by an object, rather than breathe in fumes from toxic chemicals. However, the 10 most commonly occurring incidents in the workplace are often defined as 1. Slips, trips, and falls, from spillages, open doors, and fallen debris. 2. Muscle strain, from lifting or sitting in an awkward posture. 3. Being hit by falling objects, usually in construction or building work areas. 4. Repetitive strain injury, from constant manual or office work. 5. Crashes and collisions, usually involving equipment or small vehicles. 6. Cuts and lacerations, in all environments from offices to building sites. 7. Inhaling toxic fumes, anywhere that is prone to dust and airborne particles. 8. Exposure to loud noise, usually in industrial or building areas. 9. Walking into objects, any cluttered or busy environment. 10. Fights at work, where personal grievances flare up in the workplace. Unprofessional, but it happens enough to make the list. Summary. In this module, we have covered the following points. An employer needs to perform a risk assessment to evaluate hazards correctly, and the chance of them harming staff. There are 4 main types of hazards in work environments. You should consider people outside your immediate workforce when performing an assessment. The environment and roles in an organization will affect the results of an assessment. Assessments should be periodically reviewed and revised. Risk assessments can be performed by staff, but only once fully trained and competent to do so. Thank you. This is the end of this module. Thanks for watching. Happy learning.